My beloved child, hear this carefully. What is unfolding right now is not ordinary, and it is not accidental. This message has found you because heaven itself has marked this exact moment. There is a weight in the air, a seriousness in the spirit, and Archangel Michael stands as a witness. This is not meant to frighten you, but it must awaken you. What you do with these words will determine what happens next. There are moments that heaven whispers and moments that heaven warns. This is a warning, not because God is cruel, but because His love refuses to stay silent when danger is near. Something hath been forming behind the scenes of your life, slowly, quietly, almost unnoticed. And now it has reached a point where it can no longer be delayed. Archangel Michael says, time has narrowed. The window is closing. And if this message is ignored, what comes next will move forward without resistance. This is not about punishment. This is about alignment. You have been standing at a spiritual crossroads, even if you did not realize it. On one side is obedience, humility, and correction. On the other side is delay, distraction, and spiritual pride. Heaven hath been patient, sending signs, nudges, interruptions, and inner discomfort. You felt it when your peace left. You sensed it when things that once worked suddenly stopped working. That was not coincidence. That was mercy. Archangel Michael reveals that a line had been drawn, not by man, but by God Himself. And this line is not visible to the eyes, only to the spirit. Some have already crossed it unknowingly. Others, like you, are being stopped right before it is too late. Listen closely now. Here is a decision you have been postponing, a conversation you have avoided, an instruction you keep rationalizing away. You told yourself, later when things are calm, when I have more clarity. But clarity was never the requirement. Obedience was. This urgency you feel in your chest right now, that tightening, alertness, that is not fear. That is truth, colliding with your spirit. Archangel Michael stands as a protector, but also as an enforcer of divine order. He does not come to negotiate with rebellion. He comes to cut through deception. And he says plainly, if this message is ignored, the consequences will not be stopped, not because God wants harm, but because protection cannot remain where instructions are rejected. There are doors God has been holding shut for your safety, doors you tried to force, doors you questioned, doors you complained about. And now, heaven is saying, those doors will either remain sealed under obedience, or they will open under correction. Do not misunderstand this moment. God is not angry with you, but He will not be mocked by delay. Grace is not permission to ignore warnings. Love does not cancel accountability. And silence after repeated warnings is not mercy. It is release. Archangel Michael says, some of what you are facing is not attack. It is exposure. Exposure of motives. Exposure of hidden compromises. Exposure of agreements you made when you were tired, hurt, or desperate. And here is the shocking truth most are afraid to say. If exposure does not happen gently through repentance, it will happen loudly through circumstances. This is why this message feels heavy. This is why your spirit is alert. Heaven is intervening one last time before momentum takes over. You are not being asked to be perfect. You are being asked to be honest. Honest about where you drifted. Honest about what you tolerated. Honest about what you allowed to sit on the throne of your attention instead of God. Archangel Michael declares that spiritual authority is being reassigned in this season. Those who humble themselves will be covered. Those who ignore correction will feel the shift immediately. Not later. Immediately. You may already be noticing it. Things slipping, delays increasing, resistance growing without explanation. These are not random problems. They are signals. But here is the hope you must not miss. This warning itself is proof that God still wants to protect you. If heaven had given up, there would be no message, no urgency, no interruption. The fact that you are hearing this means mercy is still active, but mercy demands response. Do not harden your heart. Do not scroll this away in your spirit. Do not say this is for someone else. Archangel Michael says, this message is targeted, precision delivered, and heaven is watching what you do next. Because what comes next, whether blessing or breaking, will follow the path you choose after this warning. Pause, breathe, and prepare your heart. There is more you must understand, and what is about to be revealed will change how you see the situation you are currently in. Beloved one, as this message continues, understand that urgency is not panic, it is precision. Heaven does not rush, but it also does not waste moments. What you are sensing now is a divine acceleration. Archangel Michael reveals that certain events in your life are lining up faster than expected, not because things are out of control, but because decisions have already been made in the spiritual realm. The question is not whether change is coming. The question is whether you will be positioned correctly when it arrives. You must realize something very important. Delay has a sound in the spirit. It is quiet, subtle, and often disguised as logic. You tell yourself you need more time, more confirmation, more comfort. But Archangel Michael says confirmation was already given. The restlessness you feel is proof. Heaven hath been tapping your spirit repeatedly, and now the tapping has turned into a firm knock. This warning is urgent because what comes next will not wait for emotional readiness. It will move according to divine order. Some blessings are time-sensitive. Some protections are conditional. This does not mean God withdraws love, it means He honors free will. If you choose not to move when instructed, heaven will not chase you indefinitely. There is something you need to release. It may be a habit, a relationship, a mindset, or a secret agreement you made with fear. You know exactly what it is. Every time you try to pray deeply, your thoughts drift back to it. Every time you attempt to move forward, it pulls you back. Archangel Michael says this attachment is heavier than you realize, and if it is not surrendered willingly, it will be removed forcefully by circumstances. This is not meant to scare you. It is meant to save you. Some of you have been asking God for clarity, but clarity comes after obedience, not before it. The step you are waiting to see is revealed only once your foot moves. Heaven responds to motion. Faith that stays internal becomes stagnant. Archangel Michael is calling you into visible alignment, not silent agreement. Pay attention now. This is where many people spiritually drift away, not through rebellion, but through passivity. They assume silence means safety. They assume delay means permission. But silence after warning means transition. And transition without preparation feels like loss, even when it is actually correction. If this message resonates, it is because your spirit recognizes the voice behind it. You were not meant to merely hear this. You were meant to respond. And response does not always mean dramatic action. Sometimes it means a quiet but firm decision to stop ignoring what God has already pointed out. Archangel Michael says protection is still active around you, but it is thinning where resistance remains. Imagine an umbrella held steady in a storm. As long as you remain under it, you are covered. But when you slowly step outside, one excuse at a time, you begin to feel the rain. That rain is not punishment, is exposure. Now hear this clearly. You are not late, but you are close to being out of sequence. Heaven works in order, and order matters more than speed. Getting ahead of God creates chaos. Falling behind creates vulnerability. Alignment keeps you safe. This is why this message is reaching so many at once. There is a collective shift happening, but each response is personal. Some will humble themselves and be elevated quietly. Others will resist and experience unnecessary turbulence. The difference will not be talent, intelligence, or effort. It will be obedience. Before we go further, let me speak to you directly for a moment. If this message is stirring something inside you, help this warning reach others who need it too. Like this video so the message can move faster. Share it with someone who may be ignoring their own inner alarm. Leave a comment, not for the algorithm alone, but as a spiritual marker that you heard and acknowledged this moment. And if this channel has been feeding your spirit, subscribe and join this community so you stay connected to what heaven is releasing next. Your engagement is not small. It helps carry this voice where it is needed most. Now stay with me, because what comes next is crucial. Many people assume that when God warns, destruction is inevitable. That is not true. Warnings are invitations. They are chances to change direction before momentum locks in. And Nineveh was warned, and because they responded, disaster was canceled. The same principle applies now. Archangel Michael says there is still a narrow path open. It is not wide. It is not crowded. But it is safe. And choosing it requires courage, not convenience. You may have to disappoint people. You may have to let go of familiarity. You may have to admit you were wrong. But what you gain will outweigh what you release. Do not underestimate the power of one aligned decision. One prayer spoken honestly. One boundary set firmly. One act of obedience carried out immediately. These small shifts route entire futures. As this continues, keep your heart open and your spirit alert. There are details about what is forming behind the scenes that you must understand, because once you see it clearly, your hesitation will fall away. Hold on, because the next revelation will connect everything you have been sensing but could not explain. Chosen one, there are moments when heaven slows everything down just enough for you to see what has been hiding in plain sight. This is one of those moments. Archangel Michael reveals that much of the pressure you have felt recently did not come to harm you, but to expose what could no longer remain concealed. Exposure is uncomfortable, but it is also mercy. What is revealed can be healed. What remains hidden gains power. Right now, a spiritual mirror is being held before you, not to shame you, but to realign you. You have been operating on partial truth, telling yourself you were fine, telling others you were strong, while quietly carrying burdens you never surrendered. Archangel Michael says heaven had been patient, but patience does not mean approval. It means time was given so you could choose differently. There are patterns in your life that repeat not because you are weak, but because you never closed the door completely. You prayed for relief, but you kept the access open. You asked God to remove the weight, but you continued to carry it out of habit. This is the moment where cycles are either broken permanently or repeated one last time with greater intensity. Listen carefully now. Archangel Michael speaks of spiritual authority being restored to those who take responsibility for their inner life. Authority is not loud. It is clean. It is ordered. And it cannot rest on compromise. Heaven is not asking you to do more. It is asking you to let go of what does not belong. Some of you have been fighting exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. That is because it is not physical. It is spiritual strain from carrying what you were never meant to hold. Guilt that was already forgiven. Fear that was never from God. Expectations placed on you by people who do not know your calling. This is why this warning matters so deeply. What comes next will amplify whatever state you are currently in. If you are aligned, it will feel like acceleration and clarity. If you are divided, it will feel like pressure and confusion. The same season produces different experiences depending on your position. Archangel Michael says the greatest danger right now is not attack from outside, but agreement on the inside. Agreement with lies. Agreement with delay. Agreement with the voice that says, "You can deal with this later." Later is not guaranteed. Alignment is. You may feel a pull right now to recommit, to pray differently, to draw a line you avoided drawing before. Do not ignore that pull. That is not emotion. That is instruction. Heaven is inviting you to step fully into truth, not halfway obedience. Here is the hard truth spoken in love. Partial surrender brings partial protection. God does not withdraw of His presence, but certain coverings are activated only through obedience. Archangel Michael guards what is aligned with heaven's order. When order is restored, peace follows naturally. This is also a moment of deep compassion. God sees how tired you are. He sees the effort you made even when you were unsure. This warning is not rejection. It is refinement. You are being prepared for something greater, and greater capacity requires greater clarity. Do not be afraid of this process. What feels like loss is actually release. What feels like ending is actually positioning. Heaven never removes without replacing. It only clears space so what is holy can remain. Take a breath. Let your heart soften, not harden. Respond instead of resisting. Even a whispered prayer of honesty is powerful in this moment. Archangel Michael says that when you choose alignment now, certain outcomes that looked unavoidable will quietly dissolve. Paths that seem fixed will reroute. Conversations you feared will shift. The future is more flexible than you think when humility leads the way. And now, receive this activation. Type "I receive the warning" and the covering in the comments if this message is speaking directly to your spirit. Lesson code 444 is now released over your obedience, your clarity, and your protection. This message did not come through chance, and neither does its continuation. When you support this work, you are not funding content. You are helping light reach those standing at the same crossroads you just recognized. I hear the Spirit say, as you sow into this warning, I will cause discernment to rise like oil in others. This is about seeds and harvest, about lamps that stay lit when darkness presses in. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal from the description, you are answering a prophetic invitation, not a request. I bless every hand that responds in obedience, and I declare that what you release now will return as clarity, peace, and divine protection. Step forward and act, sow into the mission, and let heaven multiply it. Beloved soul, now that the warning has been spoken and the mirror has been lifted, the atmosphere begins to change. What you are entering now is not louder but deeper. Archangel Michael reveals that after exposure comes instruction, and after instruction comes separation. Separation does not always mean distance from people. Sometimes it means distance from old ways of thinking that once felt safe but are no longer permitted. You may notice that certain desires no longer satisfy you the way they used to. Conversations that once energized you now leave you empty. Activities you once justified now feel heavy. This is not confusion. This is discernment awakening. Heaven is refining your spiritual tastes so you stop feeding on what weakens you. Archangel Michael says many of you are in a transition phase that feels uncomfortable because it is unfamiliar. You are no longer who you were, but you have not fully stepped into who you are becoming. This in-between space is where many retreat back to what is known. But going backward now would cost you more than pressing forward ever will. There is a quiet restructuring happening in your life. It may not look dramatic on the outside, but inside, priorities are shifting. What once felt urgent is losing importance. What you once ignored is now demanding attention. This is alignment forming beneath the surface. Pay close attention to resistance. Resistance reveals where growth is happening. If something in you is pushing back against truth, that is not a reason to stop. It is a signal to lean in. Archangel Michael does not confront what is harmless. He confronts within your future. Some of you are being asked to slow down, not because you are lazy, but because speed has become a hiding place. You kept moving so you would not have to feel. You stayed busy so you would not have to face unresolved things. Heaven is now reducing the noise so healing can occur. Do not misinterpret this pause as stagnation. Stillness is strategic. In stillness, motives are revealed. In stillness, false urgency loses its power. In stillness, God speaks without competing voices. There is also a pruning taking place. Certain connections are being strained, not because anyone is evil, but because alignment is changing. You are being repositioned toward people, environments, and assignments that require a different level of integrity. Not everyone can follow you where you are going, and that is not betrayal, it is order. Archangel Michael says it is time to stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Silence, in this season, is wisdom. Let fruit speak. Let consistency speak. Let obedience speak. Those who are meant to understand will recognize the shift without needing an explanation. You may also feel a stronger sensitivity to spiritual atmospheres. Fumes feel heavier or lighter. Words land differently. This is not imagination. Your discernment is sharpening because you asked for truth, not comfort. Truth always heightens awareness. Be careful not to romanticize struggle. Difficulty does not automatically mean you are on the right path. But peace and obedience, even when it costs you something, is a reliable marker. Archangel Michael says heaven's peace does not always feel gentle, it feels steady. It holds you firm even when emotions fluctuate. There is an instruction coming to you through repeated thoughts, scriptures, or inner nudges. You have seen it more than once. You brushed it off the first time. You questioned it the second time. Now it is returning with clarity. That repetition is not coincidence. It is confirmation. Responding to that instruction will require courage, but not complexity. It may be as simple as setting a boundary, telling the truth, forgiving without an apology, or finally letting go of something you keep revisiting. Obedience does not need drama. It needs decisiveness. Archangel Michael says the enemy's greatest tactic right now is distraction disguised as responsibility. Filling your time with good things so you never do the necessary thing. Discern between what is urgent and what is essential. Heaven always prioritizes the essential. As this restructuring continues, expect your prayers to change. You will pray fewer words but with greater clarity. You will ask less for escape and more for alignment. This is maturity forming. And maturity attracts trust from heaven. Do not fear what you are losing in this season. What leaves now would have limited you later. What stays will be fortified. What is coming will require the space being created. There is a deeper authority waiting on the other side of this obedience. Authority that does not need to prove itself. authority that comes from consistency with truth. Archangel Michael guards those who walk this path quietly and firmly. Remain attentive. Remain humble. Remain responsive. The foundation is being set for what comes next, and what comes next will require a level of clarity you are only now beginning to step into. Let the process continue. You are not behind. You are being prepared. Beloved one, as this message deepens, you must understand that preparation always precedes manifestation. What you feel right now is not delay. It is calibration. Archangel Michael reveals that heaven never releases weighty outcomes onto unstable foundations. That is why this season has been so intentional, so precise, and at times, so uncomfortable. You are being strengthened in places no one else can see. There is a quiet testing happening, not to measure your ability, but to confirm your readiness. Readiness is not about enthusiasm. It is about consistency. Anyone can say yes in an emotional moment, but heaven watches what you do when no one is affirming you, applauding you, or watching you closely. That is where trust is formed. Some of you have been wondering why recognition has been delayed. You did the work. You stayed faithful. You showed up. Yet doors did not open the way you expected. Archangel Michael says the delay protected you. If certain doors had opened earlier, you would have entered them without the discernment you now carry. Timing is not denial when it produces wisdom. You are also being trained to hear God without urgency. Bag distorts discernment. Fear rushes decisions. But calm obedience builds authority. Heaven wants you to move with clarity, not pressure. This is why things slowed down even when you felt ready to move faster. Pay attention to how your reactions have changed. You do not respond the way you used to. Things that once triggered you now pass through you. Situations that once overwhelmed you now invite reflection instead of reaction. This is evidence of growth, even if no one else sees it yet. Archangel Michael says spiritual strength is measured by what no longer controls you. When offense loses its grip. When comparison no longer dictates your mood. When approval stops being your fuel. These are signs that your foundation is becoming unshakable. There is also a refining of intention happening. You are being asked to examine why you want what you want. Some desires came from calling. Others came from compensation for pain. Heaven separates the two gently but firmly. What is born from wounds cannot sustain destiny. What is born from obedience can carry weight without crushing you. Do not confuse this refining with rejection. God is not pulling away. He is drawing closer, but closeness requires honesty. The closer you get to truth, the less you can hide behind excuses. This is not condemnation. It is intimacy. You may feel moments of loneliness even when surrounded by people. That is not abandonment. That is transition. You are outgrowing certain spaces faster than others can fall. Archangel Michael says solitude in this season is not emptiness. It is alignment. Heaven often speaks loudest when distractions are removed. There are conversations you are no longer meant to have. Not because you are superior, but because repetition has replaced progress. You explained yourself enough. You clarified enough. Now silence will do the rest. Let action speak what words no longer need to. You are also learning restraint. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Discernment teaches you when to engage and when to withdraw. Archangel Michael stands with those who choose wisdom over impulse. As this preparation continues, you may notice your prayers becoming more focused. You ask less for signs and more for strength. Less for outcomes and more for alignment. This shift is significant. It means you trust God's character more than your own understanding. Be mindful of nostalgia in this season. The past will try to call you back with softened memories. It will remind you only of comfort, not cost. Archangel Michael warns that looking back with longing can weaken resolve. Remember why you left. Remember what you asked God to change. Do not return to what He already freed you from. You are closer than you think to a decisive turning point, not one marked by noise but by clarity. When it comes, you will not need to ask 10 people for advice. Peace will settle before logic does. That peace is your confirmation. Heaven is also watching how you steward small responsibilities now. The way you handle minor assignments reflects how you will manage greater ones. Faithfulness is cumulative. Nothing is wasted when done in obedience. Do not rush this process. Creates cracks. Let each layer settle. Let each lesson take root. Archangel Michael says what is being built now is meant to last through seasons, not just moments. You are not being prepared for applause. You are being prepared for impact. Impact requires stability. Stability requires surrender. And surrender, when complete, produces authority that does not need to announce itself. Remain grounded. Remain attentive. Remain willing. What is ahead will require exactly what is being formed in you now. And when the moment comes, you will recognize it, not because it is dramatic, but because you are ready. Beloved child, now we enter a phase where responsibility meets revelation. What you have been prepared for internally must now begin to show externally. Archangel Michael says this is the stage where many people become uncomfortable, because growth now requires visibility. Not public attention, but visible obedience. What was hidden in prayer must now be expressed through action. There is a difference between knowing truth and walking in it. You have already received understanding. Now heaven is watching your movement. Alignment is no longer theoretical. It is practical. It shows in choices, boundaries, discipline, and consistency. This is where authority either strengthens or weakens. Some of you are feeling a subtle pressure to compromise again, not because you want to, but because growth often attracts resistance. When you begin to move correctly, old patterns attempt to pull you back with urgency. Archangel Michael says this is not a sign of failure. It is proof that progress is real. You may notice temptations returning in refined forms. Things you thought you were done with will resurface, but now with better excuses. The difference is that you see them clearly this time. What once confused you now exposes itself quickly. Discernment has sharpened your awareness. Do not panic when this happens. Panic gives power to what should be dismissed. Calm obedience disarms it completely. You do not need to fight everything. You need to refuse agreement. What you do not entertain cannot stay. Archangel Michael emphasizes that discipline is not restriction. It is protection. Boundaries are not limitations. They are definitions. When you define what is allowed in your life, confusion loses its voice. Many problems disappear when access is removed. You are also being taught to manage spiritual momentum. Momentum without direction creates burnout. Direction without momentum creates stagnation. Heaven is aligning both so that when movement increases, sustainability remains. This is why patience has been part of your training. Pay attention to how you steward your time now. Time reveals priorities more honestly than words ever will. What you make time for grows. What you neglect shrinks. Archangel Michael says time mismanagement is one of the most overlooked forms of spiritual leakage. There may be moments where you feel misunderstood again. People may question your changes. They may interpret your boundaries as distance. Let them. Explanation is not required when obedience is clear. Not everyone needs to understand your obedience. Heaven already does. You are also learning to rest without guilt. Rest is not avoidance. It is restoration. Burnout is not a badge of honor. Wisdom knows when to pause so strength can be renewed. Archangel Michael says many victories are lost through exhaustion, not attack. As this phase continues, clarity will increase. You will know when to speak and when to remain silent. You will sense when to act and when to wait. This internal compass is the result of alignment, not effort. Trust it. Before we go further, let me pause and speak directly to you. If this message is helping you stay aligned and alert, take a moment to like this video so the warning continues to reach others. Share it with someone who needs this clarity right now. Leave a comment as a sign that you are actively responding, not just listening. And if this channel has been strengthening your discernment, subscribe and stay connected, because what is coming next will require consistency. Your support helps keep this flow active and focused. Now stay with me because this is where many people lose momentum unnecessarily. Archangel Michael warns against spiritual isolation disguised as independence. Growth does not mean cutting yourself off completely. It means choosing wisely who has access. Community matters, but it must be aligned. Be careful who you allow to speak into your decisions during this sensitive stage. You may feel a growing intolerance for surface-level conversations. This is normal. But do not become hardened. Sensitivity is not weakness. Remain compassionate, but do not dilute truth to maintain comfort. Heaven is also correcting how you respond to delay. Delay is not rejection when it produces refinement. You are being trained to stay faithful even when outcomes are not immediate. This faithfulness is building endurance, and endurance protects destiny. Do not compare your pace to others. Some people sprint at seasons they are not equipped to sustain. You are being built for longevity. What takes longer now will last longer later. Archangel Michael says this stage requires attentiveness more than intensity. Watch your thoughts. Guard your reactions. Protect your peace. Small compromises now can create unnecessary detours later. There is a strengthening happening in your inner resolve. You are becoming less reactive and more intentional. Less impulsive and more grounded. This is not loss of passion. It is maturity of purpose. Hold steady here. Do not rush ahead emotionally. Let obedience lead, not excitement. The next shift will come naturally, and when it does, you will recognize it clearly. Stay present. Stay grounded. And keep watching closely, because the next revelation will explain why this phase is absolutely necessary for what is about to open next. Beloved one, what you are stepping into now is discernment at a higher level. This is the stage where understanding shifts from information to intuition. Archangel Michael reveals that heaven is teaching you how to recognize truth not just by what is said, but by what is carried. Words can be polished. Intent cannot. This is why your spirit has become more alert lately. You may have noticed that certain opportunities no longer excite you the way they once did. Offers that look good on the surface now feel unsettled inside. This is not fear. This is discernment protecting you from distraction. Not every open door is permission. Some doors are tests to see if you will choose alignment over appearance. Archangel Michael says discernment increases when obedience is consistent. The more you respond correctly to small instructions, the clearer larger decisions become. Confusion fades when compromise is removed. Peace becomes your indicator, not pressure. There is also a sharpening happening in how you perceive people. You are no longer easily impressed by words, charisma or promises. You sense when something is off, even if you cannot explain it logically. This is a gift, but it must be stewarded with humility. Discernment without love becomes suspicion. Discernment with love becomes wisdom. You are being taught to separate empathy from agreement. You can understand someone's pain without joining their patterns. You can love someone without following their direction. Archangel Michael says this boundary is critical for where you are going. Compassion must never override obedience. There is an increased sensitivity to atmosphere as well. Certain environments drain you quickly now. Others restore you almost immediately. This is not random. Your spirit is responding to alignment. Pay attention to what strengthens you versus what exhausts you. Heaven often guides through peace before it guides through instruction. Some of you are being called to step back and observe more than speak. This is not silence out of fear, but restraint born of wisdom. Not everything requires your input. Not every situation needs your correction. Knowing when not to speak is just as important as knowing when to speak. Archangel Michael emphasizes that maturity often looks quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It moves steadily, anchored in truth. You may feel less dramatic than before, less emotionally reactive. This is not loss of fire. It is fire under control. There may also be moments where you feel misunderstood again. Your calm may be interpreted as distance. Your boundaries may be interpreted as coldness. Let that be. Those who are meant to walk with you will eventually understand. Those who are not will fade without conflict. Be cautious of over-explaining in this season. Explanation can become a form of seeking permission. You no longer need permission to obey God. Clarity does not require consensus. Archangel Michael stands with those who choose obedience even when it is unpopular. You are also learning to trust what God has already shown you. Repeatedly revisiting decisions out of fear weakens confidence. If peace confirmed it, move forward. If conviction warned you, step back. Second-guessing what God already settled creates unnecessary instability. There is a deeper level of responsibility coming with this discernment. You are accountable not only for what you do, but for what you allow. What you tolerate sets culture around you. What you ignore gains influence. Archangel Michael says guarding your inner life is now a priority, not an option. You may feel a narrowing of focus. Less interest in many things, deeper interest in a few. This is not limitation. This is concentration. Heaven often reduces distractions before releasing greater clarity. Focus multiplies effectiveness. Be mindful of subtle pride that can accompany growth. Discernment is not superiority. It is stewardship. The moment you believe you cannot be misled is the moment you become vulnerable. Stay teachable. Stay grounded. Stay submitted. There is also a warning here spoken gently. Do not isolate completely under the banner of discernment. Discernment does not mean distrust of everyone. It means selective trust. Community is still necessary, but it must be healthy and aligned. Choose connection wisely, not fearfully. You are entering a season where your decisions will have greater impact, not just on you, but on others. People will watch how you respond under pressure. They will learn from your restraint more than your words. This is influence forming quietly. Archangel Michael says this phase is about depth over speed. You are being rooted so you are not shaken later. Roots grow in darkness, unseen, but they determine stability above ground. Let this rooting process finish. There may be moments of stillness that feel uneventful. Do not mistake them for inactivity. Stillness is where direction settles. It is where noise fades and clarity sharpens. Trust the process. You are being positioned to recognize truth quickly and respond calmly. This combination is rare and powerful. It protects you from deception and burnout simultaneously. Remain attentive. Remain humble. Remain responsive. The next stage will involve greater clarity about purpose and direction, and this discernment you are developing now will be essential to navigate it well. Stay steady. What is forming in you now will soon be required of you. Beloved child, now we move into a moment of confirmation. This is where heaven does not just prepare you internally, but begins to mark you externally. Archangel Michael says this is the stage where clarity becomes undeniable. What once felt subtle now becomes firm. What once felt optional now feels necessary. You are no longer guessing whether God is speaking, you are recognizing His voice with certainty. You may notice that decisions are becoming easier, even when they are costly. This is because alignment reduces confusion. When your inner world is ordered, your outer choices follow naturally. Archangel Michael reveals that many of the struggles you faced before were not because the path was wrong, but because your heart was divided. Division creates friction. Unity creates flow. There is a settling happening in your spirit, a calm resolve. You are less reactive to opinions and more anchored in truth. This does not mean you have stopped caring. It means you have started trusting. Trusting God more than outcomes. Trusting obedience more than approval. This is also a season of spiritual visibility. Not public fame, but spiritual recognition. Heaven is acknowledging your consistency. What you did when no one noticed mattered. What you resisted when it would have been easy to compromise mattered. Archangel Michael says obedience has a sound, and heaven responds to it. Do not be surprised if opportunities now come with greater responsibility. This is not pressure. It is evidence of trust. What is entrusted to you will match the capacity you have developed. You are no longer being tested at entry level. You are being evaluated for stewardship. There may be moments where you feel the weight of this responsibility. Do not confuse weight with burden. A burden drains. Weight strengthens. Muscles grow by carrying resistance. Your spirit is being strengthened in the same way. You are also being taught to move without needing constant reassurance. Faith that requires repeated confirmation becomes dependent on signs instead of truth. You have been given enough confirmation. Now movement is required. Archangel Michael says delayed obedience weakens momentum. Timely obedience protects it. Be mindful of distractions returning in subtle forms. Not obvious temptations, but good things offered at the wrong time. Discernment is not just choosing between right and wrong, but between right and right now. Timing is part of obedience. You may feel a renewed sense of purpose, but quieter than before. Less urgency to prove, more desire to align. This is healthy. Purpose does not need to shout. It moves steadily, guided by peace. Archangel Michael also speaks of restoration in this season. Not everything you lost will return in the same form, but what was lost unnecessarily will be redeemed with wisdom added. Loss without learning is wasted. Loss with learning becomes foundation. You are no longer meant to live in reaction mode, constantly responding to what happens around you. You are being invited into intentional living, choosing ahead of time how you will respond, what you will allow, and where you will invest your energy. This is where many people either step fully into alignment or slowly drift back into comfort. Comfort is appealing because it feels safe, but safety without growth becomes limitation. You were not created to maintain comfort. You were created to walk in purpose. Archangel Michael says heaven is watching for one thing now: consistency. Not perfection. Consistency. Returning to prayer even when you are tired. Choosing truth even when it is inconvenient. Staying aligned even when no one is watching. If you feel a sense of sobriety in this message, that is intentional. This is not entertainment. This is instruction. And instruction always carries weight. Now receive this activation with humility and clarity. Type "I walk in divine alignment" in the comments if your spirit confirms this message. Blessing code 818 is now activated over your obedience, your discernment, and your future steps. As this message settles in your spirit, hear this invitation clearly. When you support this work, you are not supporting a channel. You are participating in a divine assignment. The Spirit says, those who help carry this warning will share in its reward. Your giving becomes seed that turns into light for those still standing in confusion. When you sow through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal found in the description, you are responding to heaven's call to keep this voice moving. I release blessing over every giver, declaring that clarity will increase, protection will surround you, and provision will meet you as you act in obedience. Do not delay. Respond now, and let your support become part of what God is doing in this hour. Beloved one, what unfolds now is not sudden, but it will feel decisive. Archangel Michael reveals that you are entering a stretch where momentum begins to respond to alignment. This is the phase where internal order produces external movement. Not rushed movement, not forced change, but steady, undeniable progress that confirms you are walking in sequence with heaven. You may notice that situations which once felt stuck begin to loosen. Conversations shift tone. Obstacles lose intensity. Not because everything becomes easy, but because resistance no longer owns the atmosphere. When alignment is complete, friction decreases. You are no longer pushing against God's timing. You are moving within it. This season asked for attentiveness more than action. Small cues matter. Subtle nudges matter. Archangel Michael says the details you once overlooked now carry instruction. A delayed response, a canceled plan, an unexpected pause. These are not interruptions. They are guidance. Heaven is steering you away from unnecessary detours. You are also learning to discern urgency from importance. Everything that feels urgent is not essential. Some things that demand immediate attention because they threaten peace. Others can wait without consequence. Wisdom teaches you the difference, and this wisdom is being sharpened now. There may be a temptation to rush ahead because clarity has increased. Be careful here. Clarity does not cancel process. Just because you see the path does not mean you are meant to sprint. Archangel Michael warns that impatience at this stage can undo careful preparation. Move deliberately. Let each step confirm the next. You are also being invited to release old definitions of success. What once felt like progress may no longer satisfy you. Not because you failed, but because your measure has changed. Heaven's definition of fruit is deeper than visibility. It includes peace, integrity, endurance, and impact beyond yourself. There is a strengthening happening in your ability to wait without anxiety. This is not passive waiting. It is active trust. Trust that God is working even when you are not moving. Trust that timing is not slipping away. Trust that what is meant for you cannot bypass you. Archangel Michael says anxiety often comes from assuming responsibility for outcomes that belong to God. Your role is obedience. Outcomes are His responsibility. When you carry what is not yours, heaviness follows. When you release it, peace returns. You may feel moments of quiet confidence emerging. Not arrogance, not self-reliance, but a grounded assurance that you are where you are supposed to be. This confidence does not need affirmation. It rests even when questioned. This is spiritual stability forming. Be mindful of subtle distractions that attempt to pull your focus outward again. Noise will try to re-enter. Opinions will try to weigh in. Do not give them more attention than they deserve. Focus is fragile in transition seasons. Guard it intentionally. There is also a deeper call to integrity in small things. The way you speak when no one is listening. The way you respond when it would be easy to exaggerate, hide, or avoid. These moments matter more than you think. Archangel Michael says heaven watches the unseen with greater interest than the public. You are being prepared to carry clarity without becoming rigid. Flexibility rooted in truth is strength. Rigidity rooted in fear is weakness. Stay open to instruction even when you feel confident. Each ability protects alignment. You may notice a reduced tolerance for drama. Emotional noise drains you faster now. This is not indifference. It is discernment conserving energy for what matters. Peace has become valuable to you because you understand its cost. As momentum increases, so will responsibility. Responsibility does not mean pressure to perform. It means awareness of influence. Your choices now echo further than before. What you model silently teaches loudly. Choose with that awareness. Archangel Michael says do not underestimate the power of consistency in this season. You do not need grand gestures. You need steady obedience. Small, repeated acts of alignment build momentum that cannot be easily shaken. There may be moments where progress feels slower than expected. Do not interpret this as regression. Sometimes heaven slows the pace to deepen the root. Depth before expansion is a principle that protects longevity. You are also being reminded that rest remains essential. Progress without rest leads to burnout. Even God rested after creation. Rest recalibrates focus and renews strength. Make space for it without guilt. This phase is about maintaining what hath been built. Many people can start well. Few finish strong. Finishing strong requires restraint, patience, and humility. These qualities are being refined in you now. Remain attentive to your inner state. When peace leads, you are aligned. When pressure dominates, pause and reassess. Alignment always produces clarity, even when the path is challenging. You are closer than you realize to a meaningful shift. Not one marked by noise, but by confirmation. When it comes, it will feel right, not rushed. Clear, not chaotic. Hold steady. Stay focused. And remain responsive. What comes next will require the stability you are forming now, and you will be ready, not because you hurried, but because you stayed aligned. Beloved child, this is where endurance becomes essential. What you have walked through so far was preparation. What you are walking through now is continuation. Archangel Michael says many people misunderstand this phase because it feels less dramatic than earlier stages. There are fewer signs, fewer confirmations, fewer emotional highs. But this is not absence. This is stability. Stability is not exciting to the flesh, but it is powerful in the spirit. You are being asked to remain aligned even when nothing feels urgent. To stay disciplined even when no one is watching closely. To continue choosing truth even when there is no immediate reward. This is the stage where faith matures from dependence on feelings to trust rooted in conviction. Some of you may feel a strange tension right now. Not distress, but pressure to stay consistent. Old habits will try to reintroduce themselves gently, not aggressively. They will whisper, "You've done enough," or relax a little, where one time won't matter. Archangel Michael warns that this is where many lose ground. not through rebellion, but through relaxation of discipline. Do not confuse rest with drifting. Rest is intentional. Drifting is careless. You are allowed to rest, but you are not permitted to disengage from alignment. Awareness must remain active. You may also notice that people around you are responding differently. Some are inspired by your steadiness. Others feel uncomfortable because your consistency exposes their inconsistency. Do not internalize either reaction. You are not responsible for how others interpret your obedience. This phase requires emotional regulation. You cannot allow mood to dictate movement. Some days you will feel strong. Other days you will feel neutral. Faithfulness continues regardless. Archangel Michael says obedience that depends on motivation will always be inconsistent. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. The way you speak to yourself matters now more than ever. Discouragement often enters quietly through self-talk, not circumstances. Guard your thoughts. Speak truth even when emotions lag behind. There may be moments where progress feels invisible. You are doing the right things, but outcomes are not obvious yet. This does not mean nothing is happening. Roots grow underground before branches appear above ground. What you cannot see is often what matters most. Archangel Michael emphasizes that comparison is especially dangerous at this stage. Looking sideways will distort perspective. You do not know what others skipped, rushed, or compromised to get where they are. Your path is intentional. Your pace is protective. You are also being taught perseverance without bitterness. It is easy to grow resentful when progress feels slow. But resentment poisons clarity. Gratitude preserves it. Even quiet seasons carry purpose when received correctly. Heaven is also watching how you respond to boredom. Boredom is not lack of purpose. It is lack of stimulation. Mature faith does not require constant stimulation to remain engaged. Consistency through monotony builds endurance that carries you through larger assignments. Before we move further, pause with me for a moment. If this message has been strengthening your focus and helping you stay aligned, take action right now. Like this video so the message continues to reach those who need it. Share it with someone who may be growing weary in their own process. Leave a comment as a declaration that you are staying consistent, not just inspired. And if this channel has been part of your spiritual discipline, subscribe and stay connected. What is coming next will build directly on what you are establishing now. And trust me, you will want to be here for what unfolds next. Now stay attentive. Archangel Michael says this phase separates those who chase moments from those who build lives. Anyone can respond to urgency. Few can sustain obedience without it. You are being trained for sustainability, not burnout. You may feel less emotional intensity in prayer. Do not interpret that as distance from God. Emotional intensity is not the measure of intimacy. Consistency is. God is as near in quiet faithfulness as he is in passionate encounters. Be careful not to reopen doors you intentionally closed. Familiar patterns may look harmless now, but they carry old agreements. You closed them for a reason. Honor that decision. There is also a call to simplicity. Complexity drains energy. Overthinking weakens resolve. Keep your focus narrow. What did God ask you to do last? Are you still doing it? That is enough. Archangel Michael says obedience maintained over time becomes authority. Authority does not come from gifting alone. It comes from consistency under pressure. This authority is forming in you quietly. You are closer than you think to a shift that will require everything you are practicing now. Not more knowledge, not more emotion, but more steadiness. Remain faithful in the small. Remain grounded in the quiet. Remain disciplined without applause. This is where strong foundations are confirmed, and what is built here will not collapse later. Hold steady, stay aligned, and keep watching closely, because the next unfolding will reveal why endurance was absolutely necessary. Beloved one, what unfolds now is subtle but powerful. Archangel Michael reveals that this stage is about inner authority becoming settled, not questioned. You are no longer asking, "Am I doing the right thing?" as often as before. Instead, there is a quiet knowing forming inside you. This knowing does not shout. It angers. And once it settles, very little can shake it. You may notice that you are less reactive to sudden changes. Things that once threw you off balance now meet a calm response. This is not because life has become easier, but because your inner structure has strengthened. Stability is not the absence of storms. It is the ability to remain grounded while they pass. There is also a shift happening in how you view responsibility. You are no longer overwhelmed by it, nor are you avoiding it. You are learning to carry what is yours and release what is not. Archangel Michael says this discernment is critical. Carrying unnecessary weight weakens effectiveness. Carrying assigned weight builds authority. Some of you are realizing that certain struggles ended quietly, without ceremony. One day you noticed you no longer reacted the same way. The temptation lost its pull. A fear lost its voice. This is how real victory often looks, uneventful, but permanent. Do not overlook these quiet wins. They are evidence that transformation has taken root. Emotional breakthroughs are encouraging, but behavioral change is enduring. Heaven values what lasts. You are also becoming more comfortable with silence. Not empty silence, but reflective silence. The kind that allows truth to surface without interruption. In this silence, motives are clarified, intentions are refined, direction becomes clear. Archangel Michael says this stage is where many finally understand that God's guidance is not always dramatic. Often, it is steady and persistent, like a compass that keeps pointing north regardless of terrain. Trust that guidance even when it feels ordinary. There may be fewer external confirmations now, fewer signs, fewer affirmations from others. This is intentional. You are being taught to stand without leaning heavily on external reinforcement. Confidence rooted in God is quieter, but far more durable. You may also feel a stronger pull toward order, cleaning up loose ends, resolving unfinished matters, simplifying routines. This is not restlessness. It is alignment expressing itself practically. Order in the natural often follows order in the spiritual. Be mindful of nostalgia tempting to re-enter, disguised as reflection. Remembering the past is not wrong, but longing for what God already closed can weaken resolve. Archangel Michael warns that romanticizing old seasons can blur the clarity you worked hard to gain. You are being prepared to carry clarity into complexity. The next stage will not remove challenges. It will require you to navigate them with wisdom instead of emotion. This is why steadiness has been emphasized for so long. Notice how your prayers have changed again. They may be simpler, but more honest. Less about outcomes, more about alignment. Less about control, more about trust. This is not regression. It is depth. You are also becoming more selective with your energy. You no longer feel obligated to respond to everything. Discernment has taught you that access is valuable. Not everyone deserves it, and not every situation requires it. Archangel Michael says the selectivity will protect you in what comes next. Influence without boundaries leads to exhaustion. Influence with boundaries leads to impact. There may be moments where you feel unseen, not ignored, but unnoticed. This can feel uncomfortable if you are not careful. Do not seek visibility prematurely. What is seen too early can be mishandled. Heaven reveals at the right time. This is also a season where integrity is tested in small, quiet ways. No one may know whether you choose honesty, patience, or restraint, but heaven does. And heaven responds to what is done in secret. You are being trained to lead yourself well. Before influence extends outward, it must be consistent inwardly. Self-leadership is the foundation of all lasting authority. Archangel Michael emphasizes that confidence must remain submitted. Confidence without submission becomes pride. Submission without confidence becomes fear. You are being taught to hold both in balance. As the stage continues, expect fewer emotional fluctuations. Not because you feel less, but because you are more anchored. Anchors do not remove waves. They prevent drifting. You may sense that something is approaching, not with anxiety, but with readiness. That sense is accurate. Preparation is nearly complete. What comes next will not feel foreign. It will feel like the next logical step. Do not rush ahead mentally. Stay present. Finish this phase well. Many people stumble by anticipating the next season before fully completing the current one. Completion brings clarity. Remain grounded in what you know to be true. Continue doing what you were last instructed to do. Consistency now is more important than innovation. You are standing on the edge of a transition that will require calm strength, clear discernment, and settled trust. These qualities have been forming carefully. Hold steady just a little longer. What comes next will confirm why this long process was necessary, and you will be ready to step into it without fear, without confusion, and without hesitation. My beloved child, this is the moment where everything settles into truth. Not excitement, not urgency, not fear, but certainty. Archangel Michael says you have arrived at a threshold, not by accident, but by obedience. Every warning, every pause, every adjustment was leading you here. This is not an ending. This is a ceiling. You are no longer the same person who first encountered this message. Something inside you has shifted quietly but permanently. You do not need external proof to validate it. You feel it in how you respond. You feel it in what no longer tempts you. You feel it in the calm that remains even when answers are not immediate. This is spiritual maturity. Archangel Michael reveals that heaven now recognizes you as someone who can be trusted with clarity. Not because you know everything, but because you no longer run from truth when it confronts you. You stayed when it was uncomfortable. You listened when it would have been easier to dismiss. And because of that, protection has been restored in full measure. What comes next will not be chaotic. It will not be forced. It will unfold naturally, step by step, with confirmation following obedience, not preceding it. You are no longer being warned. You are being released. But release does not mean recklessness. It means movement with awareness. The season ahead will require you to stay rooted in what you have learned. Old patterns will attempt to resurface one last time, not with power, but with familiarity. Do not confuse familiarity with permission. You have outgrown what once felt normal. Archangel Michael says the greatest safeguard moving forward is remembrance. Remember what it cost you to get here. Remember the confusion you were delivered from. Remember the clarity that came only after surrender. Gratitude will keep you aligned when comfort tries to pull you off course. There will be opportunities ahead that test your priorities. Not all of them will be wrong. Some will simply be premature. Wisdom will be knowing the difference. You are not required to say yes just because you are capable. Alignment matters more than ability. You may also notice that people begin to seek your perspective more often. This is not accidental. Your steadiness speaks. Your restraint teaches. Your peace becomes an invitation. Do not take this lightly, but do not become burdened by it either. Influence flows best when it remains humble. Archangel Michael says your life is now meant to serve as a quiet warning and a living testimony. A warning that compromise costs more than it promises. A testimony that obedience restores what confusion steals. You do not need to announce this. Your consistency will communicate it. As you step forward, keep your inner life guarded. Return often to stillness. Do not allow momentum to replace intimacy. Success without grounding leads to drift, but intimacy anchors success in purpose. There will be days ahead where things move faster than expected. Do not panic. You have been prepared. There will also be days of silence. Do not doubt. Silence does not mean absence. It often means trust hath been established. Archangel Michael declares that from this point on, correction will be gentler because alignment is stronger. You will sense deviation quickly and adjust without drama. This is spiritual reflex formed through discipline. You are no longer being shaped for survival. You are being positioned for impact. Impact that is quiet, clean, and lasting. Impact that does not rely on validation but on obedience. Before this message closes, receive this final activation with intention and reverence. Type "I walk in divine obedience" in the comments if you receive this sealing word. Blessing code 1212 is now released over your life, your discernment, and your future. This message did not reach you by chance, and its continuation depends on obedience from those who understand its weight. I hear the Spirit say, those who help carry this word will share in its harvest. When you support this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal found in the description, you are not giving money. You are sowing light into lives standing where you once stood. As you act, I declare open heavens over your obedience, multiplied clarity in your decisions, and protection released over what concerns you most. Do not delay this response. Move now, and let your support become a prophetic act that keeps God's warning and mercy flowing to those who need it most.